Hello my guys, gals, and political gremlins alike. This video comes from a Twitter space taken about 2 weeks ago, where we discuss nearly everything related to political ones and strategy surrounding the Democrats. As well, I thought it would be best to utilize War Thunder as background video, since we are talking presidency and they are the commander-in-chief. Without further ado, please enjoy this riveting political discussion.
So again, yeah, I mean, we are living in historic times. What's that old sort of Chinese proverb slash admonition? May you live in interesting times. Well, we're doing it. We are doing it.
We have one guy who, kind of committed espionage and, has a bunch of legal issues he's going through, and another one who, skirted the 25th Amendment by literally just dropping out. It's a fun election season, huh, folks?
So it's funny. We'll go with we'll go with that actually. We'll go with the 25th of it all. Technically, and I mean you're sort of being facetious, but like notably, the 25th was not invoked, and I mean realistically, it was gonna probably die in the legislature if they had. So it was a non-starter, but
It's being proposed by Nancy Mace, I think tomorrow, and Speaker Johnson already said something on it.
As well, what's her name? I can never remember her name, but Space Lasers woman with the blonde
Oh,
hair.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, she also brought it up like a year and a half ago about the 25th Amendment, so she's just going to re-bring it back to the floor.
Yeah, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure I really buy that as anything particularly meaningful. I'm gonna play.
Nor do I.
Ultimate
I'm
Devil.
just saying things that could happen.
Oh no, I know, but I'm just gonna say I'm gonna play ultimate devil's advocate here and say if I was part of the Biden administration right now, and I specifically mean the Biden administration, I would literally be lining them up. I'd be like, "Come at me, bro! Every minute and every dollar you waste attacking me is going straight down the toilet because I'm out of the office in 6 months anyway, and that's time and money you can't spend attacking the candidate."
100%, my man, but you still know, especially how radicalized both bases are, it's gonna happen. Like, I'm just waiting to see it on the Congress or Senate floor and just all the wonderful Twitter videos to be dropping.
potentially. So I'll say this, right? Like the 25th Amendment, invoking it was literally something that people were talking about going all the way back to probably the summer of this year, if not the spring, and talking about the Democrats doing it to unseat Biden, perhaps by force, because that is kind of how that works. And then developing, and I mean, this is the thing: like people just throw things out there, they say things. This has been like one of the main election years, just saying stuff, and sometimes, ironically, saying stuff leads to stuff happening. That's arguably what led to today. But in practice, invoking the 25th is a really complicated process that involves, at multiple levels, some support within the executive branch for moving the president, B, some opposition, probably from the president himself, and being moved, C, some support, notably, usually from the VP, because that would be kind of important, C, support, like ideally having the votes in the legislature, which is always an open question, especially these days. And what was this? D, going through the motions of actually like going through all of that in the same way that, with the exception of Trump, we don't usually do impeachments on presidents. It's like just not done. It's improper, whatever. We don't usually invoke things like the 25th Amendment because, besides the fact that all those steps need to be met, it's just seen as like uncouth. So it's just off the table. But
Quinn, I would normally agree, but with how, and especially readings of the United States in terms of how politics has been done, 2016 post does not compare to 2016 prior.
oh no, for sure, no. Again, we there's a ton of unprecedented stuff that's happened in terms of politics and the governments within our lifetimes, just within the last, you know, 4, 8, 10 years. Absolutely, no question. I'm just saying, like in general, that's how these things have tended to play out. So the 25th is realistically not on the table, I would guess, just like it's something this is going to be a line of like rhetorical attack for the Republicans on the Democrats, but I would guess if I literally was to like do an up and down kind of pulse check on just the Republicans, the Democrats right now, I would guess they don't have the votes. Like I would guess that not even a majority of Republicans would actually vote for replacing, because this was what would mean in practice, replacing Joe Biden with Kamala Harris. Like the joking line when people were talking about this before is like something the Democrats would initiate is like the Republicans would be like, nah, we're good. just leave Joe in office. And so I
Yeah, but talking about like political action, the biggest issue from what I've always heard was Joe Biden not willing to capitulate and step down from the DNC for other people to take over his follow-up presidency. So him stepping down is so wonderful because now all of these wonderful actions that the Democratic Party may want to commit can actually be done. Where I have my own theory of what's best.
I mean, potentially. So
I just think the bigger issue is that the polling was. I'm not even sure how to put this, but I mean it was a disaster waiting to happen. I'm a pretty big polling averages guy. I don't like calling individual polls out, and I don't have a like a source reference for this. I just have a something that was reported. But we know that Gretchen Whitmer got on the phone the night of the debate to say, President, Mr. President, you just lost the state of Michigan. And my understanding is that the internal polling that Biden had showed him down 7 in Michigan.
But it's not even like just polling. It's the fact that for the eyes of Democrats, it was always just the notion that Republicans were, utilizing fake videos or manipulated videos to make fun of the president. But now there's live on the stage somebody who is not the best there when it comes to political action.
I don't think you get any kind of traction on pushing Biden out of the election unless you can illustrate to him, like, look, this is the state of the polling. You're not getting anywhere. And I've been on record for a while saying that both candidates probably have a floor and a ceiling that's only separated by maybe like 3 or 5 percentage points. That both of them have this deeply entrenched base that's not going anywhere. And then the question is, can you get past your base? And neither one of them is capable of doing it. Trump, because he has, pretty polarizing politics and he's a polarizing figure. But then with Biden, the issue was you can't attract new voters because any new voter that you can get is immediately walking in the door with questions about your age.
Yes, I would agree, but the wonderful thing is the Kamala Harris team can utilize the Joe Biden presidency, and especially with the push that the media has had over the last few months for Gavin Newsom, who is like a wish-wash character, but I think a net positive in the eyes of Democrats, would be a wonderful push for especially moderates, but as well Democrats to gain a foothold over Trump.
That's a wild take. I'm not sure where you got the opinion that moderates like Gavin Newsom.
No, I'm not saying that moderates like him, but I'm saying that them as a duo would have the push for the progressives with Gavin Newsom being a VP pick, and then Kamala Harris would be for the team of the moderates.
I don't buy it because right now the biggest push, the most friction that was coming from the grassroots was coming from the left. It was coming from the more progressive side of the party.
Yes, which is why it would be wonderful strategy to have Gavin Newsom be the liberal progressive voice.
No. They were pushing for him. At is like they already got what they wanted. You don't need to give them more.
Yeah, but I'm saying the Harris team is being smart, and I know it was made out as a joke in past, but with utilizing how she was still strong on crime when it comes to marijuana laws, even though it was a wish-wash situation. Which I'm not saying
you're also forgetting that they're from the same state, and that we just went through this whole song and dance with Trump and Rubio about having the president and vice president from the same state. So I don't buy Newsom on any level. I don't have any strong prognostication about who will get the VP nod, but I'm pretty confident it won't be Gretchen Whitmer and it won't be Gavin Newsom.
Totally fair. Now, I want to jump in, and I also want to give space for Jennifer, but I'm just going to throw this out there. This is reporting we'll call it recording, from Garrett Archer, a source who was right about the Biden timing, is now telling me there's an effort to recruit AZ Senator, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly to the ticket. So presumably he would be being vetted or at least considered for the VP to potentially, let's say, Kamala's top of ticket presidential nominee. Let me go quickly to Jennifer and then we'll circle back. Go ahead, Jennifer.
So I was going to repeat you can't have Gavin Newsom. Constitutionally, they're from the same state. That's one of the only, mandates. Plus, Gavin Newsom, I like Gavin Newsom, but because I'm a progressive Democrat, full disclosure. But he's pretty hated. I don't think you're going to get a lot of crossover vote with Gavin Newsom. Mark Kelly I think a swing state, white guys. Got Mark Kelly from Arizona, Cooper from North Carolina, or Shapiro from Pennsylvania. I think it's going to be one of those three, and they're all somewhat moderate Democrats. And I think they round out her ticket, and they don't have that baggage. I think Gavin Newsom repels conservatives.
Yes, which is why I think he would be wonderful to keep the liberals, especially with the Democrats. But if we're just talking and pontificating on political strategy, she does own a condo in Washington, D.C. She could just change her home residency to D.C. to have the Gavin Newsom ticket.
But I think she appeals to progressives, so I don't.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think she needs any help appealing to progressives at this point.
The VP
that's why I'm
has
saying
to
she could
appeal
change
to
her stance to like a moderate one.
What now?
No, that's why I'm saying with her now essentially being the nominee and being the front runner and her staying quiet for the most part in the background, she can now come out as more of a moderate.
I don't think that that's the play here for her in general anyway. She's got a pretty strong case she needs to prosecute and a truncated campaign season to do it in. And I think the thing is, when you don't have a year and a half to make every possible case you could, you're going to be picking and choosing which angles you're going to go with, right? I think the biggest thing that the Democrats desperately need right now is somebody who can prosecute a case against Trump that doesn't sound like a case of Trump derangement syndrome.
Which would be Kamala Harris, because she was literally an AG.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think she leans into her strengths here, and this question of like, oh, she could pivot to the center or something. No, I don't think that's reality.
I would be saying would be best playing a moderate, because if she stays outside the political domain and just saying we need to focus these charges on here and here and here because he did commit crimes in these ways, it would be a wonderful push to the moderate.
So I'm just going to jump in.
Especially after J.D. Vance said he wouldn't debate her prior to Biden step down.
A woman and Dobbs. She has, and that is a nuclear bomb for the Democrats. I would say she should do Dobbs all day, all night, every day, every minute of the day. And she's going to move suburban women who have been falling off on for Democrats.
I could not possibly agree with that more. So full disclosure, you said you're a progressive Dem, so just so that I'm not like pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. I am officially pro-life, but I'm also on record saying that I think there's got to be some kind of a compromise here that everybody can agree is somewhat reasonable, given that we're talking about like really, really strong differences that have to do with fundamental principles that have to do with liberty and rights and whatnot. That, you're never going to win by ramming one down the other's throat, at least not right now. That said, I have also been saying that this is the nuke that they need. That if they go after this, you look at various ballot proposals that have been out there for constitutional amendments and stuff. You look at instances where there was a very, very specific, like, oh, this bill is in the state house in a governor's race. Every time it's come up, something more moderate has been winning. You have not seen from any red state, well, I shouldn't say you haven't seen it at all, but for the most part, again, if it went to the voters, you have not been seeing from red states that they're signing up for aggressive restrictions to abortion. For the most part, if it went to the voters, they indicated they wanted something more moderate.
But that's actually something I think would be wonderful for the Harris team to do, especially her being a woman, would be utilizing the Roe v. Wade approach and be having a moderate voice and saying that I don't lean too much this way and I don't lean too much this way, but this is my general opinion, while utilizing Gavin Newsom as a VP pick to be that voice for the extreme left side of, more left opinions when it comes to abortion access.
Okay, so point of order. Sorry, point of order. I know that we're still a relatively small state, so we can all do sort of popcorn style, and it's okay. I'm glad we're not. We're all getting along reasonably well. I want to, outside of just the sort of Dem strategy of it all, which might be a little inside baseball for some of the listeners. Again, this is all breaking news, and first I'm just going to say affirmatively thank you, everybody who's here in this space where we're trying to do something that, all due respect to all the lovely other people in the space bar, I do mean that half jokingly or half sarcastically, but half seriously as well, because there are people in there that are my friends. I feel like we're trying to do something a little different here. So I want to kind of go out into the macro here, and let's kind of, just going off of the pinned or the stuff I have in the nest, the stuff I have in the Jumbotron, let's kind of zoom out and let's sort of look at the big picture here. So, first and foremost,
Before we get to that, I'm so sorry for interrupting you, Quinn. Let me just say, I'm not pontificating about just like Democratic strategy. This is me saying, if this is how it goes, I would vote for her. Because I'm not liking the candidacy. You guys know this, especially Jennifer. So this is me saying, if it goes like this is me wanting to vote for Kamala.
Gotcha. Just fun fact. So, firstly, just speaking on the voting for Kamala thing, right? We have not passed the convention. And one of the actual open questions, open being a key word there, is how the convention is going to work, because, I'm just going to go off of the statements, right? The initial statement was Joe Biden saying that he will not continue his campaign for re-election. Didn't really say much else in that initial statement, that press release. All this was basically textual. He's not actually made any on-camera remarks that I'm aware of. And so that went out for immediate release toward the early afternoon, like sometime after 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm in the East Coast right now. Then he made a tweet, and in that tweet, he affirmatively endorsed Kamala Harris as his pick for the nomination. But, as well, the Clintons did as well. But there was a state from Barack Obama on his Medium, which is the equivalent of, let's say, his Substack. I know it's a dirty word because of Elon on this platform. But, the equivalent, his newsletter, his blog. And one notable thing that he did not do was endorse Kamala Harris. He said, and I'm just going to quote this relevant section that's highlighted. Again, you can check the nets because it's one of the top things in there. I think it's toward the back half. The leaders of our party will be able, I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. So that goes to the convention of it all, where there's been a lot of talk about an open convention, a contested convention, a brokered convention. Right now, the state of play is on. Oh, go ahead, PPP.
Well, not to interrupt you, but I just want to kind of not squash that, but certainly put my thumb on the scale, because there's a couple of things going on here. So first off, it's way more than just Biden and the Clintons. There's been dozens of either elected officials. There's been a string of senators and reps. I think there's been a governor or two. The California DNC, a bunch of pro-life organizations, pro-choice organizations. You go down the list, there's all sorts of big influencers who are already on record endorsing Harris. So there's been a pretty strong push in, just a couple hours from, a lot of different angles. The other thing with Obama, two things. First, Obama is playing mediator like he always does. It's kind of hard to have a perception within your party of being the guy who's always on the right side. if you're constantly jumping in and making your opinion known early in the process, as opposed to letting some things work out in the smoky rooms and then lining up where the chips have already fallen. I think we've seen a bit of that screwed Obama in the past, so it doesn't surprise me that much that he didn't race out to endorse Harris. That said, I'm also not convinced that he's in any way arguing for an open convention. He said the leaders of the party will come up with a process. Well, that's currently taking place. Elected leaders of the party, are currently weighing in and saying, we think the nominee should be Harris. So I'm not convinced that Obama's pushing for an open convention, and I'm not convinced that that's a particularly serious outcome. I know you've been skeptical of that in the past, Quinn, and I basically had said, like, I'm agnostic. I don't care if that's where we go or where we don't go, but, you know, looking at this afternoon, it feels pretty obvious that it's going to be Harris.
Well, and just to jump into it, and I want to talk about it more in detail later, but especially in the regards of how Kamala Harris would be a wonderful idea of continuing the legacy of Obama, and how now we need the woman to take over, you know? But it would wonderfully play into that ideal and notion.
So let me jump in. Okay. And I hear you all. I hear you both. Yeah, no, I mean, I have very, let's say, mixed to negative feelings about an open convention as a option, as a process. And I'm trying to get you up, Swamp, but it's not letting me. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe try cycling out and coming back. We'll see. But I am trying to let you up. Anyway, I have mixed feelings about an open convention as a matter of, let's say, electoral or parliamentary process. I know it's not parliamentary government. I'm just saying for the sake of, you know, using a word. But I also do see that there are forces, it seems, who are hesitant to throw in with Kamala. And I think we can't completely discount the possibility that this is not like sewed up for her. I would prefer it. You know, I have a coconut. People maybe didn't notice I have a coconut in my bio. I would prefer that it be sewed up for her, only because I think that she is literally the sitting vice president who has had up to this point the most close experience to the office and would seemingly be the best to steward it forward. Again, I was articulating that what we currently have as a state of play is functionally incoherent, because unlike with Lyndon B. Johnson back in the 60s, I'm trying to be quick with this, we don't have a sitting president who was functionally capable of doing the job, but was seen as so disagreeable or so unpopular on policy issues and other issues that he needed to be removed, or, you know, needed to be replaced during a primary process. Crucially, he also, Johnson that is, stepped down in March of that year before the primaries, whereas Biden has now stepped out in July after the primaries, less than 3 weeks before the actual convention. Definitely less than 4. And so yeah, it's very different, a little weird in that regard. But yeah, my basic read is it's very likely going to be Kamala. It's very likely that she will, you know, get a lot of support leading up to the convention, and then get the vote during the convention. But as of right now, the state of play is not a lock, and that's all I'm trying to speak to. It's like we're talking about it as if it's already a lock, and I just want to acknowledge that it isn't. Okay, let me go to let Jennifer get in here, and then I'll go to anyone else who wants to raise their hand. Go ahead, Jennifer.
So the Democratic Party is majority women, and again, Dobbs. You know, I don't need to expand on that. I think we all know what I mean. And you've got a woman in there who she's been a prosecutor, a DA, an attorney general for the largest state in the United States. She has been a U.S. senator for the largest state in the United States, and now she has almost 4 years as a vice president. I think, you know, I've heard people already saying she's not qualified. It kind of feels a little sexism-y to me, because I mean, you maybe don't like her laugh or whatever it is about her you don't like, but not being qualified is not her problem. She does not. She is definitely qualified to be president of the United States. I believe that if the optics of putting her aside for someone less qualified, especially if it's a man, and a majority woman party would be a disaster for the Democrats. It would make me furious as a woman and who's a Democrat. um, I think that she will be a good candidate, and she has pushed back on the law and order claim, as Van said. They say, oh, Democrats are lawless, blah blah blah. Okay, here's our candidate. She was a DA, a prosecutor, and a state attorney general. That kind of kills that argument for them. But again, I say, with as our friend said, with such a truncated, you know, campaign season, I would love to see her go pro-choice, hardcore, all the way, and play the Dobbs card as a woman candidate over a majority woman party. I That was my one complaint about. Sorry about that. It's my son. That's my one complaint about Biden, is I didn't think he was doing the Dobbs thing enough. And that is an extremely important issue to women in the Democratic Party. And so I was sad that Biden got displaced. I don't necessarily think that was the right thing to do. But if they try to replace him with someone who's less qualified than Harris, and especially if it's a man, I will be pretty angry about it. And I know a lot of women in the Democratic Party who will not be happy about that in the least. And I'll land there.
I got you. And yeah, I think
aside, if I may.
Oh, go ahead. Then we'll go to Ben.
If anything is a cheap fake, I think we can all agree we've seen more than a few instances of Biden doing Biden-y things. But if anything is a cheap fake, it is the Kamala laugh, because I am on record back in 2020 having said that, like, oh, she cackles like a witch. Then in 2020, went hunting for that clip because somebody was like, I don't believe you.
Sexism. I'm sorry, bro. You don't talk about the laugh of men. That is
he's trying to.
Well, no, there was one specific clip where it sounded really bad, but like it was like any other little verbal thing, right? And when I went back and looked for it, I was like, it's not there. This, like, what I remember hearing, I know I heard it, but I can't find it. And you play clips of her laughing, and mostly it sounds like she's loving life, for lack of a better way of putting it. So I don't think that's one that's actually going to have legs, because I can't find enough instances of her actually having a really bad sounding laugh.
Gotcha. No, I'm just.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that's where you were going. That really upsets me when they did that to Hillary too. It really upsets me, and it will happen. They will attack her looks. They will say she's not likable. They will attack her laugh. It'll be all the typical things that they attack women for, and it will galvanize women in the Democratic Party behind her even more. I'm just saying, as a chick who's a Democrat, if they go the sexism route, that will win her more favor, and women will stand behind her more, because we're used to that.
By the way,
and we don't have
principles, what you're thinking of most likely is not a video of her laughing and it being bad, but that picture of her with a wide open smile that a lot of people were making memes about.
No, it's a specific way that it sounded, because it goes to the inauthenticity, right? Because I'm pretty critical of people who can't understand the concept of code switching. Like, Hillary Clinton lived in Arkansas with Bill Clinton for quite a while, so when she pulls out a bottle of hot sauce and says y'all and puts on a bit of a southern drawl, that's just her code switching. And the same thing is true of Harris. But there was one specific instance where it was really inauthentic, and it really struck me when I heard it, that it left an impression that I remembered it, that when people then said, oh, she has this pattern to her laugh, I was like, yeah, I remember that. But like I said, when I went looking for it, I literally couldn't find it. and I'm using the Google terms for horrible Harris laugh, and I'm desperately using the most outrageous search terms I can that you would think would attach to anybody who was trying to take her down or make her look bad. I could not find it.
Go search on Rumble and you'll probably find lots of it.
But I'm just reiterating, if that's where the Republicans decide to go, if they decide to call her unlikable, if they do all the same stuff they did to Hillary, that will galvanize women in the Democratic Party to stand behind.
Well, I'll give you another one. I think it would also. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say Jen is absolutely right. I mean, Trump cannot. If he deals with her the way he deals with everybody, he'll lose again for sure, and it will galvanize the Democrats. Although here, I just want to point something out as far as making fun of people's laugh or whatever. Does everybody remember the Dean scream?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's that.
It doesn't have to be fair; it just is, right?
Well,
exactly, yeah.
And notably, that was, ages ago now, but notably, that was an example of a time. It's been brought up, I think, by by Jon Stewart, among others. Is imagine some comedian insiders. Imagine a time where your chances of running for or winning the presidency could be sunk by having a weird laugh or a weird kind of moment on the campaign trail. Essentially, just being exuberant, just expressing yourself. Whereas now, we have Trump and previously Biden, and now presumably Harris, or presumably Harris again. I'll just pick just presumably, but these candidates who, by and large, have some notable unfavorables and some notable gaffes and some notable stuff that would make the Dean scream look like Bill Clinton eating Big Macs. And on the code switching thing, I'll just say or really the hot sauce of it all, I'm just going to firmly say that hot sauce thing was dirty pool and misrepresented. I've read the sort of autobiographies and contemporaneous news reporting. I don't remember exactly the details, so I might be getting slightly off. But basically, Hillary Clinton developed a love of hot sauce, eating gross, bland hospital food, waiting or visiting her dad or a family member in the hospital, and it became a lifelong thing for her that she just loves hot sauce. So it's not fake, it is real, and she got pilloried over it because it seemed inauthentic. And she made a joke about the breakfast, she was on the Breakfast Club, and she mentioned hot sauce, and they're like, "Are you pandering to us?" And she said, "Is it working?" So she was making a joke, but no, she actually legitimately loves hot sauce. Anyway, all right, let me go quickly to Van, because I know he had his hand up earlier, and also I'll do Frank, but let me go to Van, and then we'll circle back. Go ahead, Van.
Yeah, outside of the whole hot sauce thing, I was a teenager at that time during the 2016 election, and let me just say, it wasn't that disgusted me. It was that whole Pokemon Go to the polls. Maybe it's just because I was younger, but that was gross as all hell to me. But in regards to Kamala Harris and wonderful things and contributions that she can have, especially with Obama that I see, and I think Quinn would be able to speak on it better than I, but would be her connection to Obama and playing a brown woman who is also a moderate, kind of like Obama, would be a wonderful connection to help safeguard for Democrats the black vote, which you hear a lot about of fears of it turning towards Republicans, which I think would be another wonderful reason to keep her strategy. And a reason why, I think I would vote for her.
Gotcha. No, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons. I'm going to say probably at this point more pros with Kamala top of ticket, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. I'm going to PvP, and then we'll circle back. Go ahead, PvP.
Sorry, I'm just learning how these stupid buttons work, and it doesn't show me when I click stuff. I need to put my hand back down, apparently. I wanted to touch on something Jennifer said, because I think I want to give you even more credit than I think you're taking here, because you've been saying it's going to activate Democratic women. I think you're going to activate a lot of women in the middle. I think it's totally fair to say, you look at the makeup of the parties, sure. But it's also fair to say that right now, is the first poll just came out like a week ago showing that independent was the number one, like, majority, not just plurality, majority registration or identification in the country. And I don't think that's a surprise. I think the more that the parties have gotten quote unquote polarized, I have complicated thoughts on that, but that's not this space isn't the place for that. But as this polarization effect has been taking place, I think a lot of people are getting disgusted by what they see from both parties. So I do think you would see a big activation in the middle too. I am, however, probably about to step on your toes, and I apologize in advance, because I think Harris is coming in with a huge advantage that Hillary Clinton never had, which is that Hillary Clinton was carrying enormous baggage that is mostly a product of her time. There's the whole thing about her husband's infidelity, which, that becomes complicated when you fast forward 30 years and you're talking about a totally different world. But there's also things like, when she ran for Senate originally in 2000, Republicans in New York State were calling her a carpetbagger. They were saying, like, oh yeah, sure, you own a house in Chappaqua, but when do you ever live here? You live in Washington, D.C., and before that you lived in Arkansas. So she always had a ton of stuff that was causing her problems, and Harris, I don't think, is carrying any of that baggage. So I think this is maybe a way more aspirational person to get behind if the goal is, first female president.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'll just say on the Harris of it all that the AIDS thing definitely cuts in her favor. I think the ID poll of it all is kind of a wash. It's like, yes, he's just demonstrably different than Donald Trump on basically every visual and, chronological metric. It is what it is. But I think there's definitely a strong argument that can be made for her just based off of wanting something different. And whether or not you think that there's Biden baggage, that's an interesting term to coin right now, Biden baggage. Whether or not you think it's Biden baggage, I think she can probably rise above that and just say, like, I'm the better candidate. I'm different, like significantly different than the other guy. Vote for me. Let me go to Van, then Jennifer, and then Swamp. Go ahead, man.
Well, and just like Principles was saying, I think it's wonderful how she can utilize, and if she plays a moderate, pull that independent vote when it comes to polling, but as well, and I think it would be lost amongst a lot of people, it would pull a lot of the left-leaning Republicans who have massive issue with MAGA, because a lot of people forget, but there are Republicans who have issue with the Trump base, which the Kamala Harris base might be a better provider than what would be the Biden administration that we've seen for the past 4 years.
Gotcha. No, ironically, my immediate thought was like Nikki Haley voters. So it's like, hey, we're going to get those Nikki Haley Republicans. Vote for this other Indian American lady.
Exactly. There are left-leaning Republicans that people forget exist.
I was in a space with some Nikki Haley people last night. They're nice people, nice people, great people. I love them very much. So anything's possible. Let me go to Jennifer and then Swamp. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I have to agree about Hillary Clinton in 2008. I was a precinct captain for Obama in those primaries because I know, again, I'm a 58-year-old woman. I knew she had 30 to 40 years of just, whether some of it was justified, not justified, whatever, just shit slung at her. All kinds of just horrible, just the way she was treated and everything else. And I just didn't, she was not, I'm sorry, not that charismatic either. And I don't think she's inauthentic. I'll tell you what I think. I'm an older woman who grew up in the 70s. I was in a couple corporate jobs in the late 80s, early 90s, and you had to be, not as much for a woman anymore. You had to be so careful. I was in a job where I was the only woman in the boardroom. And I had to be so careful. If I acted this way, then I was the angry woman. If I acted this way, I was the emotional woman. If I acted, she's older than me. She's in her 70s now, I think, mid 70s. She came up in a man's world, and I think wanting to do man things, and I know that's a sexist thing to say, but that's what it was when she came into the world. And I think a lot of what comes off as cold or inauthentic or anything like that from her is learned behavior to survive in a world that women were not welcome in. I work a lot on the Hill. I lobby a lot. I had, when Hillary was a senator, I worked for disability rights. When she is one on one, in a, well, not one on one, I wasn't alone with her. I was with a group of activists, when I've met with her a couple times. She couldn't be more warm and authentic. She was very smart. She asked smart questions. I always know, like, they don't have to know everything about the issue we're working on. Usually they don't. Disability rights issues tend to be boutique issues that people don't know as much about. But she asked very smart questions. I always thought, why can't she convey that warmth that she does in her office with activists to the general public? But I just think she had this shell around her of self-protection and didn't want to be like when you look at Jackie Robinson, the first, black baseball player, partly why they chose him is because they knew he could keep his cool. He wouldn't be the angry black man or and I kind of think that same thing happened with her, unfortunately, too. I think she's a better person than people hate her guts, and she's unlikable and they don't like her laugh and they don't like this, but really I believe that I mean, I didn't vote for her in 2008. I worked against her in the primary because I thought Obama was a stronger candidate, and I didn't think she was charismatic, and I thought she had too much dirt on her for too long. People blamed her for her skank ass husband's affairs. I think Bill Clinton is an utter skank, and I don't think that's fair. I mean, she chose to stay in the marriage. I wouldn't stay in the marriage after the way he treated her, but that was her choice. She chose to stay in the marriage. They worked it out. I don't know how they worked it out. Whatever, none of my business. But it's always been held against her. Harris does not have that kind of baggage. I mean, I know people hate her or they don't think she's authentic or whatever, but she does not have 30 years of baggage. For VP, people keep saying Gavin Newsom and like better known Democrats. I think they need a total unknown. Get in there. He has have experience. Have this Mark Kelly in Arizona, or Cooper in North Carolina governor, executive experience, or Shapiro in Pennsylvania, again another governor with executive experience. But they don't have years of baggage to overcome. And the Pennsylvania governor is super popular. North Carolina governor, I think his ratings are he's not as popular in North Carolina. Has had some problems, but all new blood. If we're going to get rid of the old guy, which is what we did, and we're sick of him or whatever, which is sad because he has been an excellent president, has passed a lot of policy. But then if we're doing new blood, then when we're passing the baton to the next generation, they need to be young, vibrant, and not a lot of baggage. And I'll land there.
Appreciate that. And I will try to give everybody some space by trying to also make sure that we get everybody's voice in in reasonable amount of time. I'm not going to force any time limits just yet, but just putting it out there. Try to be concise. So let me go quickly over to Swamp, and then I think it's Swamp. I mean, I have to double check this. I think it's Swamp, Frank, Van, PvP. So we'll go to Swamp first, then Frank. Go ahead, Swamp.
Yeah, Quinn, you had mentioned earlier, you alluded to things that Kamala will bring. I don't know if you were referring to, policy positions or what else, but I was just wondering if you could articulate what those are.
Well, I was talking partly, I'd say mostly to the ID poll, the identity politics of it all. So, like, she is a comparatively young, certainly younger African-American female versus an old white guy, and I hate to put in those terms. Again, I've said before, I don't like identity politics. I think it's cringe, but that is the way some people think about these things and how they vote. So it's salient, it's relevant. In terms of actual policy, right? there's different schools of thought. This again kind of goes into the weeds, kind of goes inside baseball, but some would say that she can articulate, right? I can be everything that Biden, all that Biden was and all that he wasn't. Like I can be all the good things you like about Biden and none of the bad is one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is like I can just be a new transformational, new generation presidency. It's a clean slate. We can go through a new 4 years, and then technically, because he'd be eligible for re-election, we can go for another 4 years after that. She could keyword try, to be, the Hillary Clinton / Barack Obama combo for a new generation. There's all kinds of different angles, but like as far as specific policy, we don't really have much to go off of except the policies that, Biden already had in office and the wins that they quote unquote already got. I'll get to this request here. I'll get to that in just a sec. So it'd be hard to say like what the actual specific policies were, but I would say in terms of the campaign strategy, it would basically be I'm not him, and more specifically, here are all the ways that I'm not him. If for example, and this is the sort of polarity of it all, kind of going to PvP's point, if Trump hangs his hat on something in Agenda 47, like flying cars, because that's in there, or more specifically, like border enforcement or being like states' rights, pro-life, or whatever, then Harris could message on the opposite side of that. So those would be like the ideas, but mainly it's just I'm different than Donald Trump. Literally, look at me, I'm different than Donald Trump, as well as like I'm the person who's not going to be embarrassing or obnoxious in office. But,
yeah, I got that. But what do you think? I mean, she was the border czar. Do you think that's a weakness that she's going to be attacked upon? Because that is a big thing.
Hold on. Yes, no, and I want to give you a chance to speak, and then I want to let other people speak. And sorry, I'm just trying to answer your question. Yes, affirmatively, yes, it is something that she's going to have to quote unquote answer for, and she's going to have to definitely articulate a proper immigration policy and border enforcement policy that will like withstand scrutiny. Like she's basically, presumably, again, if she wins the nomination, which is likely, she will be the person who's actually going to be in that September debate, right? So she's going to have to be able to articulate all this stuff. I don't know what her plan is. I'm not on the Biden-Harris, or the Harris campaign team. I'm just looking at it from the outside in like everybody else. But my guess would be articulate good stuff that Biden did, articulate how she can do more of that, and articulate why she's a better option than Donald Trump. Let me go, if you want, I'll let you finish for another 2 minutes, and then I'll go to Frank after that and PvP after that.
Just to let you know as well, my hand is raised.
Yeah, I'll go back to you too, man.
Yeah, my hand is down. I don't have anything else.
Okay, so let me go quickly to Frank, and then PvP, and then Van. Go ahead, Frank.
Hey, am I coming through okay?
You are clear, my man.
Okay. So what was I think after I heard the news about him dropping out, Biden dropping out, one of my main concerns was that he's really strong right? And he did pretty good on the economy during these past 4 years. The labor thing really worries me because are we going to lose whatever block that is, the electorate? Is whoever the new candidate is? I know you said that it may not necessarily be Kamala, and I agree with that. Are they going to be able to pick that up? I feel like they're not going to. And we already have, what's his name, Sean, Teamsters leader, that showed up at the RNC as they were trying to run their scam about being, so worker friendly. And I know that we reached out to the Democratic side, and they haven't gotten back to him. I personally would like to see them reach out to him and have him be whatever they decide to do, because you can't have that imbalance. I think it would be bad to have that for the Democrats. That's all I wanted to say at this point.
Gotcha. Okay. And actually, I got the order wrong. It's Van and then PvP. So I'll go to Van, but before I do, I'll just say this. I saw somebody was requesting they dipped. Oh, wait, nope. Somebody else is requesting. So, I'm multitasking here. I might make some co-hosts, but just bear with me, guys. If you're trying to get up, I'm not like trying to like not let you up. I just, vetting. Like a VP, I have to vet you first. But let me go to Van.
No matter how much you like me, don't make me a co-host. I'm struggling with the buttons already.
Noted. We'll go to Van, and I'll do some stuff behind the scenes. Go ahead, Van.
If you want, just because we have a good back and forth, I could play the role of picking out the people and playing the back and forth, and you can take care of behind the scenes if you want. And then refocus.
I'm good for right now, but I appreciate it. I'll take that as a throwing your hat in the ring for co-host. I'm good for now. Thank you, though. But what do you have on the topic at hand?
So for Swamp specifically, when it comes to the Kamala Harris, when it comes to the issue of being the border czar, I was actually thinking about that earlier, and that's why I had my hand raised prior to you speaking. But I don't think it would be a massive issue because early in the Biden presidency, she was working with other nations to try and slow the amount of immigrants coming through to the southern border. So she can say how she was trying to work on it, but it was Biden's failure directly at the border where she can create a better group to try and take care of it. Where I think that would be the best strategy moving forward if she is the front runner for the Democratic Party, of course. And for you, Frank, I think, and this is a personal thing where if it goes the way I imagine, which is, a hopeful wish, I think the best thing would be Gavin Newsom being the VP pick because of how he worked with Labor parties in California and how that would be wonderful for across the world stage, especially after the whole, I can't remember which vehicular companies, but I think it was like GM and everybody went on strike and how Biden took care of it. So now Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom would be the best team moving forward.
Interesting. Okay.
Can I just reply to that real quick?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm okay with the back and forth if anybody wants to.
No, just real quick. I see what you're saying, but you cannot emulate the extent to which Biden was pro-labor. Like, he actually, I think, is the first president, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, to go out and picket line, right? And the stuff that he did for the rail workers as well. I mean, it didn't look good at the beginning, but they got it done. Does that really compare to Gavin's record? I don't think so. And maybe it's just, the next best thing.
I think it would just be the next
best
thing, and it's wonderful what he did very specific within his state, which he would be able to pontificate and say how under the DNC and with the Biden team and their past works, he can be as good of a laborer as a Joe Biden, or as good for the Labor parties as Joe Biden was. It's the idea of playing off the previous team, especially connecting it with the Obama administration.
Gotcha. Okay, and yes, you're absolutely correct, Frank. Famously, presidents have not walked picket lines or, sort of taken sides visibly because they've seen themselves, tried to position themselves as mediators between labor and business. But Joe Biden just kind of like pick a side. And to be fair, like, especially in modern day politics, picking sides and kind of cutting the BS is more popular or more like seen as defensible these days because Democrats and labor or Democrats and unions have generally been in bed with each other, for better or worse, much more than certainly the Republicans for the better part of my lifetime, if not 40 plus years. So yeah, it makes sense just optically. And yeah, the guy going to the RNC and trying to make a pro-labor pitch at the RNC is kind of weird. I would say it kind of speaks to, and I promise I'll be quick with this digression, the choose your own adventure republicanism that's going on these days, where it's like, hey, you want to be fiscally conservative and socially liberal? You can be a Republican. You want to be socially conservative and fiscally liberal? You can be a Republican. Choose your own adventure. Okay. Anyway.
Wait. Before we move on, just because this is the main idea that I was going with, Gavin Newsom would be that wonderful parallel and player, especially when it comes to California and it comes.
Yeah, I'm about to tear you apart on that one. So.
Oh, okay. I'll shut up then.
Okay. All right. We'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to go in the order of the hands. So, we had, and then we lost. Unless.
No, I should have been next, right after Van.
No. You should be next. But I'm just saying. I feel like we lost like speakers and listeners all of a sudden, randomly. But all right, yeah, we'll go to PvP and then we'll go to Nick. Go ahead, PvP.
Again, I'm glad you pivoted back to VP because I wanted to touch on a couple of things that Jen said. because you kind of listed out a couple of things that you wanted, or not that you wanted. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that you thought might be good ideas to kind of aim for in a VP, and then you gave some names, and I just wanted to offer a little counterpoint. Simply because I follow lots of politics. For me, this is not just like something that you vote and you care about the outcomes and whatnot. This is like the best blood sport ever for me. This is way better than football. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and I always said that watching politics was way better than watching the Redskins. I have
saying much.
100%. Wait, TV. I 100% agree with you though. I love the MTV. Give it to me.
But I do have a kind of a like back pocket pick that I think fits all of your criteria, but actually fits them better than any name you said. So I just wanted to have a moment to kind of play with that, because I think a lot of the names that are in contention right now came from the wish casting about like who could replace Biden. And like Gretchen Whitmer again is already on record saying she has no interest in being Kamala Harris's VP. And to some of Jennifer's points, I think like that would be a pretty risky strategy to run two women in the president and the VP. I don't know how risky, but I think Democratic strategists are going to say that's a really bad hedge. You should probably pick a man. That said, that's not anything from my perspective, just what I would expect the kind of advice they're going to be giving her. Mark Kelly, senator from Arizona, 60 years old. Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, 51 years old, and he's in his first term. He was lieutenant governor before that. However, Andy Beshear, 46, governor of Kentucky, wildly popular in Kentucky, and on top of that is in his second term. And I would argue that Kentucky's Democratic Party would benefit a lot more from getting a bump to their bench than the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. I think the Pennsylvania Democratic Party has a pretty reasonable bench to work with to move people up. If you look at Kentucky, Cameron ran an absolutely embarrassing campaign against Rand Paul. When I was trying to find information about them, because there wasn't a lot of polling, Kentucky's not considered to be a super competitive state. But Rand Paul was like on board with some crazy foreign policy stuff. So it was like, I want to see what's happening with this election. You go to Cameron's website, he had nothing. His campaign was, I'm not Rand Paul. They would benefit a lot by having the lieutenant governor step up and pick somebody from like a local branch of the Kentucky Democratic Party to elevate, to get somebody in there who can leapfrog over Cameron, so they've got something more compelling to run at the state level. But also, again, Beshear, Rust Belt, young white guy. I don't think anybody here is like endorsing the id Paul. It just is, right? We all can kind of agree that these are the conversations that are going to be happening. But I think at 46 years old, really popular in a red state, and with not just a proven record of being able to win in the state, but a proven record to be able to win repeatedly in the state, I think that is the sleeper pick. I think that's the one that nobody's talking about because nobody was seriously considering Andy Beshear for president.
Maybe, I actually agree with you, especially in regards to Mark Kelly being a also good alternative when it comes to VP, more so in a personal opinion, but I think Gavin Newsom would be best when it comes to political strategy, especially how over the last few months the media has been expounding on his name, especially like 3 months ago when Gavin Newsom, especially when a Cenk Uygur of all people, was heavily pushing it for Biden to drop out.
Interesting point. So, as I see it now, it's Nick and then Jennifer. I'm just going to jump in and say, I see you guys have already been voting on this. I appreciate that. I didn't have to call it out, but I would just say that I do have a poll up. My old hat trick. I have a poll in regards to any potential like future topics, and we already have some votes in. So go ahead and take a look at that. It's in the Jumbotron and it's pinned on my profile. But we'll go quickly on to Nick and then Jennifer. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, so I have like I've never been to America, so I've got a kind of cartoon perspective of it, so take what I say with a very large pinch of salt. But you know, I kind of space hop around, and I go into these spaces where they hate Biden, the kind of Democrat spaces where they hate Biden and they think because Biden's on the ticket, Trump's going to win. And then I go into other spaces that say if you get rid of Biden, then Trump will win. And from what I can make out, there seems to be a big age differential. So the older generation seems to be more attached to Biden, and the younger generation seems to want to get rid of him. And just from my, very small observations, it seems like a lot of young people just thought, I'm not going to vote. I don't like Biden, I'm not going to vote. And they're aware of how dangerous Trump is and whatever, but yeah, not.
Speaking for the young generation, especially after the 2020 election, I should say, are significant now when it comes to politics because we are the heaviest base that helped to win the Biden presidency.